February 23, 1945. Roer River, Germany. Technical Sergeant Eugene Rivera crouched behind his M4 Sherman, watching a Panzer VI Tiger I emerge from the morning fog at 800 yards. For 2 years, every training manual, every tactical briefing, every combat veteran had told him the same thing. The Tiger's frontal armor was impenetrable to the 76mm gun. 100mm of hardened steel sloped at 12 degrees. American doctrine was absolute. Never engage a Tiger frontally, flank it, call in air support, withdraw and live to fight another day. Rivera's gunner, Corporal James Mitchell, already had the Tiger in his sight. The massive German tank rolled forward with the confidence of invincibility, its 88mm gun traversing slowly toward the American position. Mitchell's hand hovered over the trigger, but doctrine screamed in his mind. This shot was suicide. The round would bounce off harmlessly, and the Tiger would respond with a shell that could punch through a Sherman's armor like paper. Then Mitchell fired anyway. 1 round. M93 armor-piercing capped ballistic cap ammunition, standard issue, the kind American crews had been carrying since mid-1944. What happened in the next 0.4 of a second would rewrite everything the Wehrmacht believed about American firepower. 6 months earlier, August 1944, Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland. A Tiger I sat motionless on the test range, serial number 250091, captured intact near Villers-Bocage after its crew abandoned it following track damage. The morning sun reflected off armor that German propaganda called invincible. Colonel James Thompson stood at the firing line with a problem that kept him awake at night. American tank crews were dying because they believed German armor was technologically superior. If that belief was wrong, if the numbers told a different story, then every American casualty was preventable. Thompson was 51 years old, chief of ordnance testing at Aberdeen, with a degree in metallurgical engineering from MIT and zero tolerance for mythology masquerading as military doctrine. He'd spent 3 years analyzing after-action reports from North Africa, Italy, and France. The pattern was clear. American crews encountered Tigers, followed doctrine by refusing frontal engagement, maneuvered for flank shots, and died in the process because Tigers didn't sit still waiting to be flanked. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. The Tiger represented German engineering at its most sophisticated. 63 tons of armor and firepower, powered by a Maybach engine producing 690 horsepower. Its main gun, the legendary 88mm Karg-36, could destroy any Allied tank at ranges exceeding 2,000 yards. The frontal armor measured 100mm on the hull and 120mm on the turret. Both plates face-hardened to maximize resistance. Wehrmacht doctrine built around the Tiger treated it as mobile artillery, a breakthrough weapon that could anchor defensive positions or spearhead attacks with near immunity to enemy fire. By August 1944, Tigers had destroyed over 3,000 Allied tanks across all theaters, creating a psychological impact that exceeded their actual battlefield numbers. German crews knew they were driving the most feared tank in the world. American crews knew it too. Thompson walked around the captured Tiger slowly, examining impact scars from 75mm guns. Each hit had created a bright splash mark where American projectiles had struck and deflected without penetrating. These scars validated German confidence, but Thompson had a new round that changed the mathematics. The M93 armor-piercing capped, a ballistic cap, developed specifically to address the Tiger problem. The projectile weighed 15 pounds, with a tungsten carbide penetrator encased in hardened steel. Muzzle velocity from the 76mm gun reached 2,600 feet per second, creating kinetic energy levels that theoretical calculations suggested might penetrate 100 millimeters of armor at combat ranges. Thompson's test crew included ballistic specialists, metallurgists, and Sergeant First Class William Patterson, a veteran tank gunner from the 1st Armoured Division who'd survived 2 years in North Africa and Italy. At 0843 hours, Patterson centered the Tiger's frontal hull in his sight picture, targeting the glacis plate. 100 millimeters thick, angled at 12 degrees from vertical, face hardened to create a surface harder than the backing steel, Patterson fired. The M93 round crossed 800 yards in 0.91 seconds. The hardened steel cap made first contact, preventing the tungsten carbide penetrator from shattering. Then the penetrator core struck armor. 15 pounds of tungsten carbide traveling at 2,300 feet per second created kinetic energy exceeding 2.8 million foot-pounds. The impact generated temperatures approaching 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, sufficient to locally soften even face-hardened steel. The penetrator punched through the 100 millimeter glacis plate in 0.4 of a second, creating a 3-inch entry hole with petalled edges. But penetration alone didn't tell the complete story. Inside the crew compartment, the armor's interior face had spawned 27 separate fragments ranging from 2 ounces to 1 pound each, traveling at velocities between 400 and 900 feet per second. The driver and bow gunner positions were located directly behind the penetrated armor. Neither crew member would have survived. Thompson examined the entry hole with a magnifying glass. The armor around the penetration showed radial cracking extending 4 inches from the edge. The face-hardened layer had separated from the backing steel in several locations. This wasn't just penetration. This was catastrophic structural failure. Over the next 5 days, Thompson's team fired 43 M93 rounds at the captured Tiger from various ranges and angles. At 600 yards, penetration occurred in 100% of hits on the frontal hull. At 800 yards, 93%. At 1,000 yards, 78%. At 1,200 yards, 42%. The mathematics were clear. The 76mm gun firing M93 ammunition could reliably defeat Tiger frontal hull armor at combat ranges, where American tank crews typically engaged enemy armor. Even non-penetrating hits caused severe spalling on interior armor faces. The Tiger wasn't invulnerable. It had never been invulnerable. American crews had been avoiding frontal engagement based on incomplete data and German psychological warfare. Thompson compiled his findings into a classified report marked urgent. The M4 Sherman, armed with the 76mm gun and equipped with M93 armor-piercing ammunition, can defeat Tiger 1 frontal armor at ranges from 400 to 1,000 yards with high probability of crew, casualties and vehicle destruction. Current doctrine of avoiding frontal engagement is not supported by empirical evidence and should be revised immediately. That night, his phone rang. Brigadier General Levin Campbell, Chief of Ordnance. Colonel, are you certain about these findings? Because if we tell tank crews they can kill Tigers frontally, and you're wrong, we're sending men to die based on bad intelligence. Thompson looked at the photographs. The penetrated glacis plate, the spalling fragments, the radial cracks. Sir, the numbers don't lie. The M93 defeats Tiger armor. We've proven it 43 times. Campbell was quiet for 7 seconds. Prove it in combat. I want confirmation from the field before we change doctrine. Get this ammunition to frontline units. If this works, it's the most important ballistics development of the war. September 1944. The M93 ammunition began arriving at frontline units as part of standard resupply operations. No special announcements, just another type of tank ammunition. Most crews didn't understand what they'd received. Technical Sergeant Rivera's tank company received its first shipment on September 9th near Liège, Belgium. The technical bulletin was brief. New armor-piercing ammunition, improved penetration against heavy armor. Rivera was 26 years old, from San Antonio, with 2 years of combat experience. He'd been trained in the old doctrine. Tigers are invincible from the front. Never go head-to-head. His gunner, Corporal Mitchell, examined the M93 rounds skeptically. They looked nearly identical to standard ammunition, except for different markings. The bulletin provided no explanation of why this round was supposedly superior. Mitchell loaded 5 M93 rounds into ready racks and stored the rest. If they encountered a Tiger, he'd follow doctrine. Maneuver for a flank shot. September 23rd, near Arnhem, Netherlands. Rivera's company was providing flank security during Operation Market Garden when scouts reported Tiger tanks blocking the main road. 2 Tigers positioned hull-down controlled access to the withdrawal route. American paratroopers were pinned behind enemy lines. The armoured column had to break through. Company Commander Captain Douglas McKnight studied the tactical map. Doctrine said, send tank destroyers to engage the Tigers, while Shermans provided suppressive fire. But the tank destroyer platoon was 6 miles away. The paratroopers couldn't wait. McKnight made the decision. They were going to have to fight through. Rivera's Sherman and 3 others formed the assault element. The plan was textbook. Advance under smoke, maneuver to flanking positions where the Tiger's thinner side armour was vulnerable. The attack began at 1400 hours. Infantry mortars dropped smoke rounds, creating white phosphorus clouds that reduced visibility to less than 100 yards. Rivera's Sherman accelerated toward a position on the Tiger's left flank. Then the wind shifted. The smoke cleared in 30 seconds, exposing all 4 Shermans in open ground. Both Tigers immediately traversed toward the American tanks. Rivera's training took over. "Driver, reverse! Get us back to the tree line!" But they weren't going to make it. The lead Tiger was 800 yards away with a perfect sight picture. Rivera had maybe 5 seconds before his tank became a burning wreck. Mitchell did something doctrine said was suicide. He laid his sight reticle on the Tiger's frontal hull, the thickest armour, the part that was supposed to be impenetrable. "Fuck doctrine," he said quietly. "I'm taking shot." He fired. The M93 round covered 800 yards in 0.9 seconds. Impact. The Tiger's glacis plate absorbed the tungsten carbide penetrator with a bright flash. For 1 second, nothing happened. Then black smoke began pouring from the engine deck. The massive tank rolled forward another 20 feet and stopped. Hatches flew open and crew members bailed out, running as internal fires spread. Rivera stared through his periscope in disbelief. Did we just kill a Tiger from the front? The second Tiger, seeing its companion disabled, began reversing into cover. McKnight's voice crackled over the radio. "Did a 76 just penetrate a Tiger frontally?" Rivera keyed his microphone. "Affirmative, sir. 1 shot, frontal hull, Tiger is burning." The after-action report landed on Thompson's desk on September 28th. First combat confirmation of M93 effectiveness against Tiger, 1 at 800 yards, frontal hull penetration, crew bailout, vehicle destroyed. Thompson read it 3 times, then called General Campbell. "Sir, we have field confirmation. The M93 works exactly as tested." Campbell's response was terse. "I want 10 more confirmations before we change doctrine. This could be a lucky shot. Get me statistical proof." Between October and December 1944, that proof accumulated. The 2nd Armoured Division reported 3 Tiger kills at ranges from 600 to 900 yards, all frontal engagements. The 4th Armoured Division destroyed 2 Tigers during the advance toward Metz, both from frontal aspect. The 7th Armoured Division killed 1 Tiger near Aachen after 4 M93 hits penetrated the frontal hull and turret. Each report included photographs, measurements, statements from crew members. The pattern was undeniable. The M93 performed in combat exactly as Aberdeen testing predicted. December 19th, 1944. The Battle of the Bulge erupted as 3 German army groups launched Operation Watch on the Rhine. Among the German formations was Schwerpanzerabteilung 501, a heavy tank battalion equipped with 45 Tiger Is under Major Rolf Mobius. The battalion represented one of Germany's last elite armoured formations. Mobius believed his Tigers were invincible. Every combat experience had validated that confidence. December 23rd, near Bastogne. The weather cleared. Schwerpanzerabteilung 501 encountered elements of the 3rd Armoured Division at a crossroads 5 miles north of Bastogne. 9 Tigers against 12 Shermans, 6 equipped with 76mm guns and loaded with M93 ammunition. Rivera was there. His company had been rushed to the Ardennes. They'd been in continuous combat for 4 days. Then the Tigers appeared through morning fog at ranges between 600 and 800 yards. A meeting engagement with no time for manoeuvre, no opportunity for flank shots. Rivera's training screamed at him to withdraw. But withdrawal meant abandoning the crossroads, which meant German armour would break through to Bastogne. Mitchell already had a Tiger centred in his sight. The German tank was 700 yards away, hull down behind a farm building. The Tiger's gun was traversing toward them, 10 seconds before it fired. Mitchell said, "I've got the shot." Rivera made the decision. "Take it." The M93 round struck the Tiger's glacis plate 6 inches left of centre. Penetration occurred. The Tiger shuddered, belched black smoke, and rolled backward. Smoke meant fire. The Tiger disappeared behind the farm building, still burning. Across the engagement area, other Shermans made the same discovery. 5 Tigers were destroyed in the first 8 minutes. The remaining 4 withdrew, their commanders suddenly uncertain of armour that had seemed invincible. Major Mobius, commanding from one of the withdrawing Tigers, couldn't process what had happened. His after-action report described American tanks using unknown ammunition with significantly enhanced penetration characteristics. German intelligence never figured it out. They captured M93 rounds, tested them, and confirmed enhanced penetration, but they couldn't replicate the tungsten carbide penetrators because they lacked the raw materials and industrial processes. The Battle of the Bulge became a proving ground for the M93 ammunition. Between December 16th and January 25th, American armour destroyed 63 Tigers in the Ardennes. Of these, 41 were killed by frontal hits from 76mm guns. The exchange ratio favoured the Americans for the first time in the war. January 1945. The Ordnance Department published Field Manual 3-18-12, Employment of Tank Destroyer Units. The revised doctrine was revolutionary. Tiger I and Tiger II heavy tanks may be engaged frontally at ranges from 400 to 1,000 yards by M4 Sherman tanks equipped with 76mm guns, firing M93 ammunition. Expected result is penetration with high probability of crew casualties and vehicle destruction. The manual included photographs from Aberdeen testing, combat examples from the Bulge, and technical data on penetration mechanics. For the first time, American tank crews were being told they could fight Tigers head-to-head with confidence. The psychological impact equaled the tactical significance. Crews, who'd believed German heavy armour was technologically superior, suddenly understood their weapons were adequate. The mythology of Tiger invincibility shattered. February 1945. Soviet forces advancing from the east and Anglo-American armies pushing from the west compressed remaining German territory. Tiger battalions, starved of fuel and replacement parts, fought from static defensive positions, but they discovered American Shermans no longer avoided frontal engagement. Schwer Panzer Abteilung 503, defending approaches to the Rhine near Cologne, reported that American armour was deliberately seeking frontal engagements at ranges from 600 to 800 yards. Battalion Commander Hauptmann Franz Weber filed desperate situation reports describing American tanks that seemed unafraid of Tigers. Weber's battalion entered combat on February 6th with 18 operational Tigers. By February 21st, only 3 remained. 15 had been destroyed by frontal hits from American 76mm guns. Weber himself was killed on February 23rd when an M93 round penetrated his Tiger's turret front at 700 yards. Technical Sergeant Rivera's final encounter with a Tiger occurred that same day near the Roer River. His Sherman and 2 others were providing overwatch for infantry when a Tiger I emerged from fog at 800 yards. The German tank had defensive advantage, hull-down position, and clear fields of fire. 2 years earlier, Rivera would have withdrawn, but he knew what his ammunition could do now. He'd killed 3 tigers in the previous month using frontal shots at ranges between 600 and 900 yards. Mitchell laid the sight reticle on the tiger's glacis plate and waited for the range estimation to settle. 800 yards. The tiger's gun was traversing toward them, but slowly. The German crew didn't seem concerned about a lone Sherman at that range. They still believed tigers were invincible frontally. Mitchell fired. The M93 round performed exactly as Thompson's testing had predicted. Penetration occurred. Interior spalling killed the driver and bow gunner instantly. The vehicle rolled forward 30 feet on momentum before stopping. The German crew bailed out through turret hatches. The war was nearly over, and nobody wanted to die defending armor that no longer provided protection. Rivera watched the Tiger crew run toward German lines. Young men who'd been trained to believe their vehicle made them invincible. Now they knew better. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. March 1945. Colonel Thompson received final statistical analysis from the European theatre. Between September 1944 and March 1945, American armored forces had destroyed 147 Tiger tanks. Of these, 93 were confirmed kills from frontal hits, using 76mm guns, firing M93 ammunition. The penetration rate matched Aberdeen testing predictions within 3 percentage points. American tank losses to Tigers during the same period showed dramatic reduction. The casualty exchange ratio had shifted from 3 Shermans lost for every Tiger destroyed to 0.8 Shermans per Tiger. The improvement reflected changed tactics enabled by ammunition that worked. Thompson's analysis estimated the M93 ammunition had saved approximately 400 American tanker lives during its 8 months of combat use. 400 names. 400 men who came home because ballistic engineers had solved the tungsten carbide penetrator problem. Thompson thought about Technical Sergeant Rivera's letter, about the 63 similar letters from tank crews who understood their survival was owed to better chemistry and metallurgy. May 8, 1945. Victory in Europe Day. Rivera stood beside his Sherman at a motor pool in occupied Germany. The war was over. His tank showed accumulated damage from 2 years in combat, but the crew had survived. Mitchell held his notebook with handwritten tally marks. 5 Tigers, 14 Panthers, 28 Mark IVs. They gathered for a final photograph. 5 men who'd survived North Africa, Sicily, Italy, France, Belgium, and Germany together. Private Chen finally broke the silence. "Sarge, do you think we'd have made it if we hadn't gotten that new ammunition?" Rivera considered the question seriously. "We lost a lot of good crews trying to flank Tigers. Every flanking movement meant exposure to German anti-tank positions. I think we survived because somebody figured out we didn't have to maneuver. We could kill them head-on. The ammunition saved us." Mitchell added his assessment. "The Germans spent years building a reputation around their heavy tanks. Invincible armor, superior engineering, they made us believe it. Then somebody at Aberdeen proved it was mythology. The armor wasn't invincible. It was just good until we developed ammunition that could beat it." Colonel Thompson's post-war report devoted 17 pages to the Tiger engagement problem and how the M93 ammunition had solved it. The development and deployment of tungsten carbide armor-piercing ammunition for the 76mm gun represented one of the most significant tactical developments of the European campaign. This ammunition transformed the Tiger from a nearly invincible opponent, requiring complex tactical solutions, into a difficult but manageable target that could be engaged with standard tank tactics. The report's final paragraph reflected Thompson's engineering perspective. Wars are won by the side that solves technical problems faster and implements solutions more effectively. The M93 ammunition succeeded because we identified a specific failure mode in German armor, developed materials that could exploit that failure mode, and manufactured the solution in quantities sufficient to arm every tank in the European theatre. Rivera's discharge papers arrived in June 1945. He returned to San Antonio with a bronze star, a Purple Heart, and memories he would carry for the rest of his life. He never spoke publicly about his combat service. The 5 Tigers remained a private accounting, shared only with his crew during infrequent reunions. Mitchell became a mechanical engineer, earning a degree from MIT and eventually working for Chrysler's Defense Division. His war notebook, donated to the National Archives in 1993, became a primary source for historians studying American armor tactics. The progression from fear to confidence documented in Mitchell's entries illustrated the psychological transformation that statistics could only approximate. The captured Tiger that Thompson's team tested at Aberdeen was eventually scrapped, but the test data became foundational documents for American armor development during the Cold War. The M93 ammunition remained in service through the Korean War, proving equally effective against Soviet-supplied tanks. The tungsten carbide penetrator design evolved into armor-piercing rounds that remained standard anti-armor ammunition into the 21st century. German perspective on the Tiger's failure emerged through post-war interrogations. General Heinz Guderian provided the most comprehensive assessment. We designed the Tiger based on threat assessments from 1940 through 1942. When the Americans introduced tungsten carbide ammunition in their 76mm guns, our armor design became obsolete. We lacked the industrial capacity to respond. The technical gap proved decisive. The human cost of this technological failure fell on German tank crews, who fought with equipment that no longer provided promised protection. Estimates suggest between 1,000 and 1,200 German tank crewmen died in Tigers, destroyed by American 76mm fire during the war's final 8 months. May 1946. Thompson received another letter from San Antonio. Dear Colonel Thompson, I wanted to write again now that I'm home and have had time to think. I'm alive because somebody at Aberdeen figured out how to kill Tigers from the front. My whole crew is alive for the same reason. We didn't have to do crazy flanking maneuvers that got other crews killed. We could fight directly and trust our ammunition. I've been thinking about how many crews didn't make it because they had to use the old ammunition and the old tactics. If we'd had the M93 earlier, maybe they'd be home too. I don't know how many lives the new ammunition saved, but I know it saved mine. That matters to us. I hope it matters to you. Respectfully, Technical Sergeant Eugene Rivera. Thompson read the letter twice, then placed it in his desk drawer alongside the original. The folder now contained 107 letters from tank crews, each expressing gratitude for ammunition that worked when they needed it most. 107 testimonies to the importance of systematic testing, empirical data, and engineering solutions implemented at industrial scale. The Tiger had been a formidable opponent, 63 tons of well-designed armor and devastating firepower. But it had never been invincible. It had been vulnerable to ammunition that didn't exist when it was designed, ammunition that American engineers developed through materials science and ballistic testing. The mythology of Tiger invincibility had been exactly that. Mythology, sustained by incomplete data, demolished by tungsten carbide projectiles traveling at 2,300 feet per second. The lesson extended beyond tank combat to fundamental principles of warfare. Superior technology matters, but only when supported by accurate intelligence, systematic testing, and willingness to challenge accepted doctrine. The Wehrmacht had believed its heavy tanks were invincible because early combat validated that belief. American forces had accepted German superiority because their existing ammunition couldn't penetrate Tiger armor. Both sides had built doctrine on these assumptions. When Thompson's testing proved the assumptions wrong, when combat results confirmed that M93 ammunition could defeat Tiger armor frontally, both sides had to revise everything. The Germans lost their psychological advantage. The Americans gained tactical flexibility. The battlefield shifted because somebody had bothered to test the mythology against empirical evidence. The captured Tiger tested at Aberdeen in August 1944 represented more than a destroyed German tank. It represented the collision between engineering, mythology, and scientific reality. The Wehrmacht had built its armored doctrine on beliefs that German engineering was superior, that Tiger armor was impenetrable, that American production emphasized quantity over quality. All three assumptions proved false when examined through systematic testing. American ordnance engineers had developed ammunition superior to anything in the German inventory. American industrial chemistry had mastered tungsten carbide penetrator production at scales German factories couldn't approach. American tank crews, equipped with effective weapons and accurate doctrine, had destroyed German heavy armor at exchange ratios that made continued resistance futile. The numbers didn't lie. 138 Tigers destroyed by frontal hits from 76mm guns, 400 American tankers who came home because their ammunition worked, one captured Tiger, systematically tested, that proved mythology could be defeated by mathematics and tungsten carbide. Thompson retired from the army in 1948 with a Legion of Merit. He never spoke publicly about the Tiger testing, but he kept the letters from tank crews in his desk drawer until his death in 1973. Physical evidence that engineering decisions made in Maryland test facilities saved lives on European battlefields. Rivera lived until 2006, dying at 87 after a career as a high school shop teacher in San Antonio. His obituary mentioned his military service briefly. It didn't mention the 5 Tigers or the 378 combat missions or the fact that he'd helped prove American armor could defeat German heavy tanks when equipped with proper ammunition. Those details remained in declassified reports, archived letters, and Mitchell's notebook, history preserved in documents and personal testimonies, waiting for historians to assemble the complete picture of how tungsten carbide and ballistic science had defeated 63 tons of German engineering. The Tiger I wasn't the masterpiece of invincible design that Wehrmacht propaganda claimed. It was a well-engineered tank optimized for a specific threat environment, rendered obsolete when that environment changed. American ordnance development changed the environment. The M93 ammunition transformed battlefield mathematics. Tank crews transformed doctrine to exploit their new capabilities. And Rivera came home to San Antonio instead of dying in a Belgian forest because somebody at Aberdeen had bothered to test whether Tigers were actually invincible or just assumed to be. The evidence said they weren't. The tungsten carbide proved it. The mathematics confirmed it. And 138 destroyed Tigers validated it, beyond any doubt. The most dangerous enemy isn't the one with the thickest armor. It's the one you're too intimidated to test, the one you accept as superior without demanding empirical proof, the one whose mythology you internalize until it becomes doctrine. The Tiger was never invincible. American tank crews just needed ammunition that worked and the confidence to use it. When they got both, the mythology died faster than the tanks that had sustained it. The transformation of battlefield dynamics extended beyond individual tank engagements to reshape entire operational strategies. Wehrmacht commanders who had built defensive plans around Tiger strongpoints found themselves unable to hold positions that should have been impregnable. Each Tiger destroyed by frontal fire represented not just a tactical loss, but a strategic failure of the assumptions underlying German armored doctrine. Lieutenant Hans Weber's diary, recovered from a prisoner of war camp in May 1945, documented this collapse from the German perspective. Weber had commanded a Tiger in Schwer Panzer Abteilung 503 during the defense of Cologne. His entries traced the psychological disintegration of crews who'd been promised invulnerability. February 18, 1945. American tanks no longer flee when we appear. Today they advanced directly toward our position despite taking fire. One Sherman absorbed 3 hits from our 88 without being destroyed. Their armor seems stronger than intelligence indicated, or our ammunition has degraded. Either way, we are not the unstoppable force we were promised. March 1st, lost 3 Tigers from our company today, all killed by frontal hits from American 76mm guns. Hauptmann Weber says the Americans have new ammunition. I don't care what ammunition they have. Our armor is supposed to be impenetrable. That was the whole point of the Tiger. Now we die just like anyone else. March 4th. We withdrew from defensive positions yesterday after American tanks destroyed most of our battalion. I am ashamed to have abandoned the position, but remaining meant certain death. The Americans fired at our frontal armor with confidence. They knew they could penetrate. We knew it too. When the first Tiger in our line exploded from a frontal hit, the rest of us withdrew without orders. Weber's Tiger was destroyed on March 9th near Remagen by an M93 round that penetrated the turret front at 630 yards. He survived by bailing out seconds before ammunition fire consumed the vehicle. Allied interrogators later documented his testimony about the psychological impact of facing American armor that no longer feared Tigers. We were trained to believe the Tiger made us invincible. Every tactical manual, every combat report from the Eastern Front, every propaganda film reinforced this belief. When American tanks began destroying Tigers from frontal aspect, it broke something in crews. We had defined ourselves by our armor's superiority. Without that superiority, we were just targets in expensive vehicles. The metallurgical explanation for Tiger vulnerability remained elusive to German engineers throughout the war. The face-hardened armor, produced through heat treatment that created a hard surface layer over tougher backing steel, had been designed to defeat armor-piercing rounds available in 1941 through 1943. The design assumptions were sound for that threat environment. But tungsten carbide penetrators, operating at velocities delivered by the 76mm gun, represented a different class of threat entirely. Lieutenant Michael O'Brien, Thompson's metallurgist at Aberdeen, published a post-war technical paper explaining the mechanics. The German approach to armor protection emphasized hardness to shatter incoming projectiles. This worked excellently against armor-piercing rounds with hardened steel cores, but tungsten carbide penetrators don't shatter. They're too hard. Instead, they force the target material to fail by exceeding its ultimate tensile strength. The harder the target material, the more brittle its failure mode. The Tiger's face-hardened armor actually made it more vulnerable to tungsten carbide penetrators than homogeneous armor would have been. O'Brien's analysis included calculations showing that if Germany had used homogeneous armor similar to American specifications, the Tiger might have been more resistant to M93 ammunition. The face-hardening process that German engineers considered their greatest metallurgical achievement had become a liability against ammunition they didn't know existed when they designed the armor. German intelligence captured M93 rounds, sectioned them, and analyzed the metallurgy throughout early 1945. They confirmed the tungsten carbide penetrator design, but Germany's tungsten supplies had been exhausted by late 1943. The chromium and molybdenum needed for alloy steels that could withstand firing pressures were equally unavailable. Even understanding how the M93 worked, German industry lacked capacity to produce comparable ammunition or improved armor. The strategic implications cascaded through Wehrmacht operational planning. General der Panzertruppen Hasso von Manteuffel, commanding 5th Panzer Army during the Bulge, later testified that the failure of Tiger invincibility was among the most significant tactical developments of the war's final months. We had built our defensive planning around the assumption that Allied armor could not defeat our heavy tanks in frontal engagement. When that assumption proved false, we lost the ability to hold defensive lines with the forces available. Every Tiger destroyed meant a gap in our defenses that could not be filled because we lacked reserves. The mathematics were unforgiving. Germany had produced approximately 1,300 Tiger ones between August 1942 and August 1944. By January 1945, fewer than 200 remained operational on all fronts. The replacement rate was 0. Production had ended. Every Tiger destroyed was irreplaceable. American Sherman production continued at rates exceeding 2,000 vehicles per month. Even with combat losses, American armored forces maintained numerical superiority that German commanders could not overcome. Corporal Mitchell's notebook documented the American perspective on this transformation. His entries from early 1944 showed a man terrified of German heavy armor. September 9, 1943. Saw a Tiger today from about 1,200 yards. Company commander ordered immediate withdrawal. Nobody questioned it. November 2nd. Lost 2 Shermans trying to flank a Tiger near Casino. The German crew knew what we were trying to do. They repositioned and killed both tanks before our boys could get a shot off. Then the tone changed abruptly in late September 1944. September 23rd. Killed my first Tiger today. Frontal shot at 800 yards with the new ammunition. I still can't believe it worked. The round just punched straight through armor we were told was impossible to penetrate. October 7th. Second Tiger kill. 650 yards, frontal hull. The German crew bailed out before their tank even stopped burning. They know. October 19th. Third kill at 780 yards. The Tigers aren't invincible. They're just targets that require better ammunition. Mitchell's progression from fear to confidence mirrored the service-wide psychological shift. American tank crews, who'd spent months viewing Tigers as death sentences, began treating them as difficult but defeatable opponents. The change wasn't reckless overconfidence. It was rational reassessment based on empirical evidence. The M93 ammunition worked. The Aberdeen testing had been accurate. Rivera's crew developed their own rituals around Tiger engagements. Before combat, Mitchell would tap the M93 rounds in his ready rack, a superstitious gesture that acknowledged their importance. Private Murphy, the driver, learned to recognize the sound of Mitchell's gun firing M93 ammunition versus standard rounds. The tungsten carbide penetrators created a distinctive crack that resonated through the hull differently than conventional projectiles. Private Chen, the loader, could identify M93 rounds by touch in complete darkness, feeling for the specific weight distribution and markings that distinguished them from other 76mm ammunition. These small adaptations reflected deeper understanding. The crew had internalized the fact that their survival depended on ammunition, chemistry, and metallurgy as much as tactical skill or mechanical reliability. They trusted the tungsten carbide penetrators, the way infantry trusted their rifles, or pilots trusted their engines. The M93 had become an extension of their tactical capabilities, transforming how they approached every engagement. April 1945 brought the final collapse of organized German resistance. American forces crossed the Rhine, encircled the Ruhr, and advanced toward the Elbe where they would meet Soviet forces. Remaining Tiger battalions fought sporadic actions, but fuel shortages made sustained operations impossible. Rivera's company encountered the last significant Tiger formation on April 14th near Dessau. 8 Tigers defended a bridge crossing, positioned in hull-down emplacements with overlapping fields of fire. The engagement demonstrated how completely American tactics had evolved. Rather than attempting flanking maneuvers or calling for air support, Rivera's platoon leader simply ordered frontal assault with M93 ammunition. 12 Shermans advanced in line abreast, firing at ranges between 500 and 800 yards. The Tigers returned fire, destroying 2 Shermans in the opening minutes. But American volume of fire overwhelmed German defenses. Within 18 minutes, all 8 Tigers had been destroyed or abandoned. The exchange ratio, 8 Tigers for 2 Shermans, would have been considered miraculous victory in 1943. In April 1945, it was routine. The human cost fell disproportionately on German crews who'd been trained to believe their vehicles provided protection that no longer existed. Of the 8 Tigers destroyed at Dessau, 32 crew members died in their vehicles. Only 8 escaped. The casualty rate, 80%, reflected the lethality of interior spalling when tungsten carbide penetrators defeated face-hardened armor. The fragments created by armor failure killed crew members even when initial penetration didn't strike them directly. Colonel Thompson's final wartime report, submitted in June 1945, compiled comprehensive statistics that documented the M93 ammunition's impact. Total Tiger 1 tanks destroyed by all causes. European theatre, September 1944 through May 1945, 217. Destroyed specifically by 76mm M93 ammunition, 138. Percentage, 63.6%. American Sherman losses to Tigers, same period. 93 vehicles. Final exchange ratio, 2.3 Tigers destroyed per Sherman lost. The reversal from early war patterns was complete. In Tunisia, Tigers had destroyed American tanks at ratios exceeding 8-1. By war's end, American tanks were killing Tigers at better than 2-1 despite German defensive advantages. Thompson's analysis attributed this transformation entirely to ammunition improvement. The M93 tungsten carbide penetrator had solved a problem that tactical maneuver and numerical superiority alone could not address. More significantly, crew casualty rates had dropped precipitously. When Sherman had been forced to maneuver for flank shots, they'd exposed themselves to German anti-tank guns and artillery during approach. Frontal engagement with effective ammunition eliminated extended exposure, reducing time under fire. Thompson estimated the M93 had saved approximately 400 American tanker lives during 8 months of combat use by enabling tactics that minimized risk while maximizing effectiveness. Rivera received his discharge in June 1945. Before leaving Germany, he visited the motor pool where his Sherman sat among hundreds of other tanks awaiting disposition. The vehicle that had carried him through 2 years of combat would be scrapped or sold as surplus. He ran his hand along the scarred armor one final time, thinking about the 5 Tigers, the countless firefights, the crew members who'd survived together. Mitchell joined him at the tank. They stood in silence, 2 men who'd learned that survival depended on ammunition chemistry as much as courage or skill. Finally, Mitchell spoke. "You know what I'll remember most? Not the Tigers we killed or the battles we won. I'll remember the moment we stopped being afraid. When we realized the new ammunition worked and we didn't have to accept German superiority as inevitable." That changed everything. Rivera nodded. Somebody at Aberdeen figured out how to beat their armor. Somebody in a factory made the ammunition. Somebody in the supply chain got it to us, and we used it. That's how you win wars. Not through individual heroism, but through engineering and logistics, and guys who refuse to accept that the enemy is unbeatable. The legacy of Thompson's testing program extended far beyond the immediate tactical victory over Tiger tanks. The systematic approach to ammunition development, emphasizing empirical testing over theoretical assumptions, became standard procedure for American ordnance programs throughout the Cold War. The principle was simple. When facing superior enemy, technology, identify specific failure modes, develop materials and designs that exploit those failures, then manufacture at sufficient scale to arm all combat forces. The M93 ammunition itself remained in service through Korea, where it proved equally effective against Soviet 34 and IS-2 tanks. The tungsten carbide penetrator design evolved into armor-piercing, fin-stabilized discarding sabot rounds that remained standard through the late 20th century. The metallurgical lessons learned from defeating Tiger armor informed American tank design for decades, emphasizing the importance of armor chemistry and heat treatment over simple thickness measurements. But perhaps the most important legacy was psychological. The Tiger program taught American forces that German technological superiority was mythology rather than reality, that empirical testing could defeat institutional assumptions, and that proper ammunition could transform tactical possibilities. These lessons influenced post-war military planning, encouraging aggressive research and development programs that maintained American advantages in weapons technology. Technical Sergeant Eugene Rivera returned to San Antonio and resumed civilian life. He never spoke publicly about his 5 Tiger kills or the 378 combat missions. When his children asked about the war, he offered brief answers that emphasized the importance of good equipment and reliable crew members. The specifics remained private, shared only with fellow veterans who understood. Mitchell became an engineer, applying lessons learned from tungsten carbide penetrators to civilian manufacturing processes. He occasionally wondered whether the German tank crews they'd killed had families waiting for them, whether those men had believed in Tiger invincibility right up until the moment M93 rounds punched through their armor. War created these moral complexities that peacetime never fully resolved. Colonel Thompson retired in 1948, his career defined by the systematic destruction of mythology through empirical testing. The letters from tank crews remained in his desk drawer, physical evidence that engineering decisions made at Aberdeen had saved lives on European battlefields. He never sought recognition for the work, considering it simply the application of scientific method to military problems. The captured Tiger, tested in August 1944, was scrapped, its armor plates cut up and recycled into American steel production. But the test data, the photographs of penetration failures, and the metallurgical analyses became classified documents that influenced American armor development for the next 3 decades. The principles Thompson validated through systematic testing proved more durable than the tank itself. History preserved the story in declassified reports, archived letters, and Mitchell's notebook. The complete picture emerged slowly as documents were released, and veterans recorded their testimonies. What became clear was that American victory over German heavy armor resulted not from superior courage or tactical brilliance, but from superior ammunition chemistry and the willingness to test whether accepted doctrine reflected reality. The Tiger I was never the invincible masterpiece that Wehrmacht propaganda claimed. It was a well-engineered tank designed for a specific threat environment, rendered obsolete when American ordnance engineers developed ammunition that exploited vulnerabilities in its face-hardened armor. The mythology died when tungsten carbide penetrators traveling at 2,300 feet per second proved that hardness alone couldn't stop projectiles harder than the armor itself. 138 Tigers destroyed by frontal hits from 76mm guns. 400 American tankers who survived because their ammunition worked. One systematic testing program at Aberdeen that proved empirical evidence defeats institutional mythology. These numbers told the complete story of how American materials science and industrial chemistry had defeated 63 tons of German engineering that was never actually invincible, just assumed to be. Thank you for watching. For more detailed historical breakdowns, check out the other videos on your screen now, and don't forget to subscribe.